This is the Logicity for Vision Manufacturing web demo, and I'm Adam Ellis with the company SaberLogic. And during our demo today, we're going to start off by talking about Logicity, what the product is, kind of at a high level, and then what this specific version does. Next, we'll go into the component overview. These are the components that make up the Logicity program that are shared by all variations of the Logicity software. After that, we'll talk about the setup steps, what it takes to get this installed on your workstation so that you can use them in your environment. And then after that, we're going to go more demonstrational throughout the rest of the presentation, really just showing you how everything works and showing it in action. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off by demoing using one of our included starter reports. I'll describe what that means when we get to that slide. We'll talk about adding existing reports to the Logicity menu, or in that situation I'll be adding a brand new report. Adding reports from other systems to the Logicity menus, using Logicity to generate integrated labels out of Visual, changing the macro name, what the impact of that has, and how you can get some additional functionality by taking advantage of that feature, adding non-reports to the Logicity menu. And then after that, I'm going to mention another product that's called Logicity Automatic Invoicing, which is actually a separate program than what we have here. It's something specifically for automatically batching out invoices. We'll talk a little bit more about that once we get to that slide, but it's all kind of part of the visual integrated side of things. And so we've got time for a Q&A should you have any questions, but feel free to shout out your questions as you have them. So we're going to start off just by talking about Logicity in a general sense. Logicity is a piece of software that our company has wrote several years back, and it's a multi-purpose program. The vast majority of users out there use it as a standalone Crystal Reports viewer. And in that capacity, we have both a free version and a pro version, and the vast majority of our users use that free version, and we have a pretty large community of people out there who are recommending it to other people, so it gets beat up on pretty good anytime we've got if there's any sort of issues, we hear about them. The other way that people use Logicity is as a utility to schedule the delivery of your reports by email, printer, or to disk. So there's some other products out there where these would be two separate functions, the viewer versus the scheduler. The way we've written Logicity is the same product does all of those same things. So that's another option if you wanted to, for example, email off your daily time cards every morning and send them off to your shop supervisors. You could use our product to do that. The last option, and this is one that's only specific to people who are using Visual, would be as an add-on for Visual Enterprise that allows your users to run integrated Crystal Reports right from within Visual. And we always make a point here to mention that there's no need to purchase full seats of Crystal Reports to be legal with our software. We develop our software using the Crystal Reports SDK, so it's the same thing they would use for any of their stuff they put out. But the way the licensing works is we license that off of Business Objects or SAP, and it's completely legal for you to run it regardless whether you own Crystal. You'll probably want to have a copy of it just for your own internal development purposes, but you aren't obligated to have that. All right, so we're going to break down the components here, what all the pieces that make up Logicity. And this is for every version of Logicity, regardless of which version you're going with. First, we have what's called Logicity Desktop. This is a piece of software that your end users interact with on a day-to-day basis. And it has two jobs. The first thing it does is it runs RPT files. So if you were to just double-click on an RPT file on your C drive, it would attempt to open it up, refresh it against the database, and present it to you. In its role doing that, because we build it with the Crystal Reports SDK, it's going to operate exactly like the preview tab within the Crystal Reports Designer. So if you need to fill in your database login, it's going to prompt you for it. If you have parameters on your report, it's going to prompt you for those parameters. And the way that it prompts you is going to be exactly how it does inside full Crystal. The only difference is that you just can't edit the actual report itself, which you probably don't want your end users doing anyway. The other job that Logicity Desktop does is run what we call Logicity solution files. And we'll describe those on the next screen here. Logicity solution files are created in a program called Logicity Solution Builder. And this is something more for the administrative side of your company. What you basically do is you set up these wrappers around your crystal reports, and these solution files are those wrappers. And by wrapper, I just mean that it'll take an RPT file and you say, all right, I want to use this username and password and I want to view it. Or I want to take this crystal report, use this username and password, I want to email it to this list of people with this email subject and this body in this attachment format. Or I want to print it off to this printer. Any sort of these little automations that you want to do with a crystal reports file, a Logicity solution file is the tool that you use to automate that with. So I can already hit some of these. Some situations when you might want to use a solution file would be if you want to schedule the delivery of your reports to disk, printer, or email. If you want to fill in any bits of information on your report so that your end user isn't prompted, things like parameters and database logins, that'd be another situation. If you want to password protect your report, if you want to log access, find out who's running what reports from where. If you want to create virtual workspaces for your report, so the default behavior would be that you would just be in your file system and double-click on the RPT file or the Logicity solution file, and it would open it up in a screen. But if you want to create like a favorites list of all the reports that are relevant to one person, you can create a solution file that has all those reports listed, and all you got to do is double-click on them, and it fires the report off. This feature is actually the primary way that you'll interact with in the visual integrated version of Logicity. Or anytime you want to add items other than reports to your solution files, so things like Excel documents or anything else, they all can become part of these solution files. This is all very high-level stuff here. As we start to demo it, a lot of these points will become a little bit more clear.